You see, I'm a simple college student. Living alone in an apartment, I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver here in the States. I have purposely locked myself out of all media and the internet aside for school purposes. That means no 4chan, no i/v/, no Bulbapedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided that during that time, I would replay my crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized that not long ago, my mum threw it away because I told her the save was dead, and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my silver version, so all I have is my Game Boy Color. As such, I set out to GameStop and bought a used silver version, as it's only Pokemon game left that they have for the EBC. $10, fairly cheap. I went home and started it up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started getting bizarre, and most likely the reason why you read this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on. Same thing happened. I tried pressing A and started over and over, and all the buttons. Eventually, the logo vanished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in the previous save file, which is odd as I was expecting all of these carts to have wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyways. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile and apparently he had 999.99 hours put into the game, with all 16 badges, 9999.9 Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokédex. Seeing as he apparently had a Mew and a Celebi logged also, I am guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what badass team he has. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknowns and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I'm thinking this must be some cruel joke by the person who last played this game. I decided to check the profiles of those Pokemon anyway. As I expected, there were different letters of the unknown, all over 5. I was a bit shaky with my own known alphabet at the time, but I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Mind you, this was before there was individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 HP left with 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that, despite my volume being at max, none of the Pokemon had said their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was parked at what appears to be the room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason, there was no NPCs around. Even more eerie was that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if just leaning on its side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there weren't. I walked around for a few minutes but can't seem to find a way out. This is certainly not a room I've seen in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill, as I recognized the map melody to be the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the alpha rooms where the unknown are at. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room that would need flash. Before I took care of that though, I immediately checked my Pokédex to change the radio to something more pleasant. But it turns out there was no radio card, or even a phone or time cards. There was only a map card in which gold, ... from earlier, and I'll call him gold from now on, was just walking in the midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has flash, so I turned off my pillar gear and made Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see any message saying Hurry has used flash or anything like that. The room just became lit, just like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red with a line or grey path heading south. The ladder I used to go up and down was not there any at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question ahead. I chose yes, as I do not know what it was asking, and the screen went black again, making a ladder climbed sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with a not as creepy poke flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said that Hurry has fainted, which is odd since I recalled that there was no status conditions like poison on him, and it clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigation, none of my Pokemon are there, but instead all replaced with level 10 unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelled out the unknown. My 19 of unknown spelled, he died. Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were grey bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside that room appears to be a bunch of graves similar to the ones in Pokemon Red and Blue. I walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game and some sadistic fuck sold it to GameStop. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again only to find out that the sprite of gold was missing his arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason it also said that he has 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimlessly wandering around, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up though, as the character spun downward slowly, as if sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of gold is coloured differently now. Instead of the usual colour red he does, he's apparently completely white now, including his skin, as if he came straight from the Colorless Game Boy game, placed into a coloured background of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and while now as white as his overworld sprite, he lost his legs and has what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says now he has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me as this change of numbers seems to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contains 5 unknowns at the level 100 Celebi with a nickname. The unknown of this time are level 15 and spelled out dying. I checked the Celebri's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only half of the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye. It only has 1 attack. Perish song. The area I was in itself was a sprout tower with the immobile pillow as before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually I finally encountered some degenerate men and women NPC. They were all lined up to the side, just facing a long slantish pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happens when I try to speak to them. I kept on going north until eventually the pillar finally appears, chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to red, and without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged and finally in battle. The music starts again, which sounds like the known radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's back sprite matches his front one with the bloody eyes, white skin and lack of arms, while Red sprite was the same as before in GCS, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he has no name, and both of us only have one Pokemon each, which is weird as I swore I had 6 with unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite also. The shiny noise animation was different, as the sound it made sound like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255, and his sprite seems sad and has tears in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight item Pokemon run menu, I was only given the option to use their attacks. Since Celebi only has one, I chose it naturally. Since Pikachu is level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I have a choice. At this point, it didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also note that there were no animations at all for no reason. Pikachu used Flail, which doesn't do much damage despite his level and boost his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happens as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Look, not like that did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted, except on the text it said, "Celebi has died." Instead of the orderly drop off the screen animation, the Celebi back sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up even with Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack, beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards it said, "Pikachu has died," with his slow fade out animation. Apparently, I was the winner as the transparent red sprite showed up and said, ... At that point, I just freaked out as that transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld with another change to the gold sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked the gold's profile, where this time the only thing remained of him is his head. With transparent skin, the head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes. It now stated that he now has 40 badges, and then backed out and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 shiny unknown, which when spelled out read, "No more." I was at what I now know is next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason, I still felt like something was there that could be heard. I was back in my room in New Barktown. Maybe finally I get to play this game. Probably. But who am I kidding? I knew that statistic fuck must have done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what's waiting down there. No, I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent limbs at all while doing so, just floated like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer and TV did not work, so I had no choice but go down the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appeared normal, except Mom isn't home. After failing to interact with anything in this room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, that door leading outside at the south didn't work, and instead I just walked straight through it to avoid. I continued moving south to see what the fuck was going on. My house vanishes as I head south into the void. It was creepy as when I entered the void. The outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area and Gold's sprite turned back black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it, he said, "Goodbye forever." Notably with a space between the forever and ... and vanished. As that happened, it said ... used nightmare. Which at that point I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downwards like before. I'm now back into that small hollowed out room, surrounded by graves earlier. Or at least I say I was back there, as there's no sprite anymore. I tried walking around but nothing moved, not even wall bumping noises. I checked my trainer profile which with absolutely no gold sprite left. It said I had 0 badges and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. As I expected, it spelled out the phrase that I dared to read: "I'm dead." As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. I didn't figure out where exactly that room was when the final text said R.I.P. ... That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold has already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokemon Master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game, and the same thing happened, at which I then finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at that gimmick unknown the same way again. They said that only the first generation have folk tales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me.